Nobody cares. I'm just telling you straight, nobody cares. What they're really coming for is when people listen to you is the tips. They want to know that they could listen to you, and people come for various reasons. Some people, they like your voice, or they like the way you contextualize things, or they like the engagement, or they like the information that you're sharing that they never heard somewhere else, or probably they did hear it somewhere else, but they just like the way how you do it. And let me liken that to a very practical experience. We have all gone to school. We have all been in front of teachers, but we know there are certain teachers that we don't connect with.
In today's episode of my podcast story, we have Corine La Font, a dynamic communication specialist, podcaster, and publisher. Corine is the host of the inspiring podcast Between the Lines, where she empowers listeners to discover their true selves and communicate with clarity in both personal and professional realms. Born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, and having spent over 2 decades in Jamaica, Corine's rich cultural background and creative spirits shine through in her work. With a passion for helping others navigate the complexities of communication, she combines her expertise in crisis communications and relationship building to create impactful conversations. She's here to share her inspiring journey on how she built her show from the ground up, and now she's using her platform to foster authentic connections and drive meaningful change in the world. Tell us your name, the name of your podcast, and what your podcast is about.
My name is Corine La Font. The name of my podcast is Between the Lines, and my podcast is about decoding hidden meanings in communication.
Wow. How old is your podcast?
How old is my podcast? Yeah. Well, it all depends. It went through different phases. I've been podcasting since 2012.
Wow. Okay. Is it the same podcast, or did the podcast evolve, or you started another one?
No, it's the same podcast and it evolved.
Okay. Well, back in 2012, was it still called Between the Lines, or was it something else?
Always Between the Lines. Always Between the Lines. I never changed the name.
Wow. So that would be 13 years of podcasting. Wow.
I didn't even calculate, but that's some good maths, I guess.
Wow. I mean, people are struggling. People are struggling to keep up with 2 to 3 months of podcasting, and here we are, 13 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was one of the early birds. One of the early birds when podcasting came out.
Then when podcasting was much more difficult than it is now.
It was never difficult, It was never difficult.
It was never difficult.
No, I don't know.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
Podcasting is one of the easiest things to do. I started on blog too.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess you later on you explain how your workflow worked back in 2012 and how it is now. Okay. Usually, podcast hosts, they tell me that they start their podcast to impact the world and all that. But I'm always curious, what was the reason? What led to you starting the podcast back in 2012?
Conversations. I enjoy learning. I enjoy expanding my mind. And intellectually stimulating conversation always gets me, in a good way, conversations and learning. And it's another way instead of reading a book. Not that I don't like reading books. I like that. But I think over the years, you kind of transition into different ways. So you can have 2-3 books in your head just from having a conversation with someone,
Yeah.
And I used to be an avid reader of, tangible, physical, printed books. As a child growing up, I really used to consume a lot of books. And then, as I got older and audiobooks came about, now I'm into because it's fast.
Yeah.
I can lie down, relax, and listen to it and do something else probably in the meantime. And I could, multitask, if you want to use that word. I could write notes at the same time while I'm listening, So you tend to evolve. And the same way how my podcast evolved. When I first started in 2012, I was talking every topic except politics and religion. I was talking travel, relationships, being an author, all sorts of things, relationships. I was open to everything. And so it didn't have a focus. And over the years, as I moved along, I noticed, probably I'm not getting the kind of traction that I would need. I started to tweak things, do things differently. Even my booking engine for booking my guests, my follow-up emails, everything just changed, in a very good way.
Yeah.
And especially recently, I decided I need to really take this as a very strategic, not necessarily a business, but very strategic. And because my career is about communications, I decided, my podcast need to complement my business consultancy. And so it could add value to what I'm doing. And it's a very good marketing tool. It's my only marketing tool. I don't spend money on marketing at all.
Yeah.
And so and so I use my podcast as a very good marketing tool that I'm pushing it very aggressively within the past few weeks and going forward. What I've come to realize, I was looking at, because I've spoken on stages or spoken on TV and radio and things like that, traditional radio. And it just hit me, I guess, recently, not that it wasn't there before, but podcasting can do so much in the sense of speaking. So when people think of speaking, they think it's only going on a big stage with hundreds of thousands of people, and you're selling your books from, behind the stage or in front of the stage or the side, wherever, after sales. And you have to write this long, there's a keynote speech and prepare, and you're stressed out and you want to go in the bathroom. And, you know, it could really put you out. But podcasting tends to protect you from all of that. And you would have to travel sometimes if you're doing a live event, face-to-face event, if you're doing a conference or a summit or something like that. But with podcasting, you could meet the world right here, just like how we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't have to travel to
Nigeria.
do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm open to the world. Everybody's seeing this. When you go to a conference, you're limited to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, how many people? And it will not go any further than that.
Yeah.
And when you look at the return on the investment, your travel, your preparation of your speech, your materials, all of that, it doesn't work out. Even if you're a paid professional speaker, it really doesn't work out. So why not do a podcast and you're able to reach much more people, probably even talk to people live, when I say like on their comments and people see me like this, for example, and they may say, hey, I want you to speak at my event. It builds credibility because they see me all over the place in Africa, in Europe, on the Western world, because of podcasting. So it's less stress, it's more fun, it's one-to-one. So if I had a fear of speaking live, I don't have that when I'm speaking to you.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah.
So it does a lot of good. It does a lot of good.
Yeah. I guess.
And I could do 20 or more of these for the month.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody
Flying.
who's a
Oh,
speaker on a
that would have been
a
difficult.
speaker on a physical stage will not be able to do 20 live engagements. It's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could do one of these or two of these, three of these every day if it comes to that.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, back in 2010, when you started the podcast, would you consider yourself a professional speaker as a then?
What do you mean by professional speaker?
Like,
Because
were you speaking like right now? You speaking is what you're doing. From what you said so far, speaking is what you're doing full time, and that's what you do professionally. So back then, were you how do I put it now? Were you still figuring out speaking, or you kind of like already knew what you were doing in terms of speaking?
the speaking is not my career. Communications is my career, which is broader than speaking. So I deal with corporate, I deal with communication strategy, I deal with crisis management, I deal with reputation management. But speaking is part of that, dealing with the public, dealing with stakeholders, that type of thing. And professional speaking really has to do with actually going on a stage or probably like this in a podcast or going on radio. But to answer your question about being a professional speaker, my readiness back then, it all depends on how you perceive a professional speaker, based on who you know and who you emulate or who you see as a professional speaker. And what we tend to do, we look at someone like a Tony Robbins or a Les Brown who are on those stages and feel that, they're raking in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and they have an audience of hundreds of thousands of people, and that makes them a speaker. But what really makes somebody a speaker is really that they have a story to tell. So anybody who has a story to tell is a speaker. It has nothing to do with whether the professional part is what we add on, and that's really relative. It all depends on your perception. But anybody who has a story to tell is a speaker. You have a story to tell. You're in Africa. You're not wearing anything African like me. And you could tell the story.
Yeah.
Why, as an African, you not represent an African? And so that's a speaking topic.
Okay.
Okay. I I could tell the story behind why I ended up wearing this, and it just worked for today.
Yeah.
That makes me a speaker. So it's really anybody who could tell a story. And that story could be real, unreal, it could be about somebody else's story. So everybody is a speaker.
Yeah.
Everybody is a speaker. But what makes us, as we term professional, and I use the air quotes, is because you see the person on stage, you see the person doing something that you're afraid of doing. People are afraid of going on TV. People are afraid of talking on radio. People are afraid of talking in public. People are afraid of interacting in social gatherings. People are afraid of writing a book. So you think, oh my God, you're an author. Oh my God, you're a professional speaker. You could do that too.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I'm doing that you can't do.
Yeah.
You just need to remove the fear factor.
Yeah.
That's it.
I guess the question is coming from, I've had a guest on the podcast that told me that he started the podcast back then when he first joined Toastmaster. And so when he joined Toastmaster to improve his public speaking, he was like, okay, one of the projects for the Toastmaster was start a podcast. And so he started the podcast to improve his public speaking. So that was why I was like asking you, like back then when you started the podcast. Okay. So
Yeah, and no. I love that, and I'm glad you brought up Toastmasters because I used to be a Toastmaster and very much involved and active. I was actually public relations manager for the Caribbean, so I'm quite familiar with that particular activity. Having a podcast, which most people who are going to Toastmasters, they tend to do, to help them get over the fear.
Yeah.
That is, if that is what helped you to get started or helps someone to get started, it doesn't matter. Some people are forced. So, for example, all of us have been in our workplace and somebody may or attend an event like a wedding or a funeral or a birthday party, and they will call on you all of a sudden and say, give the vote of thanks. Give the vote of thanks. And you're shying away from it. Or say the welcome or come up and say the prayer. Wisdom, come up and say the prayer. And you could pray.
Yeah.
You are praying every day.
Yeah.
But the fact that the person tells you, come up in front of all these people and say the prayer over the food, you're stricken. Suddenly you don't know God. You don't. But that in itself, being called upon, right, is actually, you're a speaker. That was your moment. That was your moment.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to say thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a pleasure. And you remember to recognize the host and thank the people for the food and the music. And, however you wing it, you are a speaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever it is that push you, and when I say you, I don't necessarily mean you alone.
Yeah.
I'm talking to your audience. Whatever pushes you, whether by force, which most of the time it is, or volunteer, you're a speaker. But as I said, the professional part, that professional thing comes when we put people up on a pedestal and we think, oh my God, he's on a stage and he's commanding hundreds of thousands and he's raking in 10,000, how much thousands of US dollars, So what?
Yeah. Wow.
You have a story to tell.
Yeah. Quickly, I want us to look at how your podcast gets made. So what's like the workflow like from idea to publishing your podcast, and how frequent do you publish?
Vibe too. But normally what I do is I used to, it's just recently I changed it. I used to air my show live on a Sundays from 1 to 1 to
Okay.
10. Prior to that, I used to do it like from 1 to 5. So I used to have back-to-back shows from 1 to 5 p.m. my time. And then I switched it because, you see, my time is important. And when you're a solo podcaster, I don't have a big team to support me. I have to really manage my time. And that is something that I think is overwhelming for a lot of people as a solo podcaster if you're going it alone, and it turns them off. And this is why a number of them don't survive, because you have to think about getting the guests, setting up the show. It's a lot of moving parts that could really overwhelm you if you want to put on something good. And then you have the after, meaning the promotion, the social media, the engagement, the follow through, Then you sort of think about monetizing and a whole lot of things if you're bringing in sponsorship. But you don't have to take on all of that. And it's kind of hard for me now to go through all the different steps. But I think we met on Podmatch.
Yeah.
I want to big up Podmatch because Podmatch has a workflow, a beautiful workflow that takes a lot of that stress off of us as podcasters. So they have everything set up. We don't have to think about what the next step should be. In carrying out a very easy system. There's a system in place that allows us to move seamlessly from one step to the next, So you have they would even provide guests to you, and if you're looking to be a guest, they would match you. So they have a very good system that they have worked on for the years, that I just sit back and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
After working in my podcast, over the how much years, 13 years now, I'm making my podcast work for me, and so it's a wonderful workflow. So it's if anybody wants to really understand about a proper system, I would suggest that they look into Podmatch, join in Podmatch and getting to understand that. And they have two different options. You could be a guest, you could be a host, or you could be, well, it's three options. You could be a guest, host, or both. I am both because I want to be able to benefit from both sides of the fence. Check it out. It's very good.
Yeah. You did mention that you're the one handling the production and making of your podcast. So what are the tools, the apps, and how much would you say it costs to produce your podcast?
I can't say about cost. I don't spend a lot of money in terms of my podcast. I tell you, I am for now. I'm using my laptop with the internal mic. I keep everything very basic. From 2012, it's the same thing. There are people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars behind a whole setup. They have a whole studio. Mic, camera, light, and the umbrella, the whole shebang. If you want to do that, you could go ahead. If you're not producing something that an audience wants, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I think you need to understand what you need to focus on, because a lot of people have all these things. They come just like there are things that you want to do, and you do all the planning. You sit down with paper and pen, and everything is on paper, but nothing is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing has moved off the paper,
Yeah.
and you would sit and plan and research and talk to people, and you have all of that. You do all the stuff, but nothing is real.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could decide the type of person that you are, and they call that analysis to paralysis. So I see analysis to paralysis in the sense of buying all the lovely equipment, setting up a studio, getting professionals, and all of that. But then your audience not connecting with you. You have to decide what really matters. And for me, it's audience connecting with me. I want my guests on my show to have a fabulous experience, which they always do, and they keep coming back. They leave me 5-star reviews, very positive reviews, refer me to other people. And so that is what matters to me. The audio has to be pretty good. It doesn't have to be exceptional. I don't have any audio engineers or anything like that. I am looking now to probably get somebody to do some audio editing for me, but it's not critical to say that I have to, take on that. I'm going good so far. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
To realize it. And that is what happens to people. The analysis to paralysis stops them because they want it to be perfect. Their look has to be perfect. Their hair has to be perfect. The clothes the way they sound has to be perfect. The color of their skin has to be perfect. No, it doesn't. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I'm just telling you straight, nobody cares. What they're really coming for is, when people listen to you, is the tips. They want to know that they could listen to you, and people come for various reasons. Some people, they like your voice, or they like the way you contextualize things, or they like the engagement, or they like the information that you're sharing that they never heard somewhere else, or probably they did hear it somewhere else, but they just like the way how you do it. And let me liken that to a very practical experience. We have all gone to school. We have all been in front of teachers, but we know there are certain teachers that we don't connect with. And there are certain teachers that we do. And we will skip our assigned teacher's class and slide into to the other teacher's class, and then we get caught. The principal will say, you're supposed to be in this class, wisdom. Why are you not in this class? But you're skipping out.
Yeah.
So what is the reason behind that? It's the same thing with podcasting. What is the reason?
Yeah.
And it's just psychology connection, because there are lots of podcasts out there, but why are you listening to this one and not that one? Why are you watching this particular video podcast? Why are you engaging? Why? So we have to understand who we want to be. When you decide to go into podcasting, what really matters? Is it the equipment? Is it the perfect, all the little things flying in and out when people look at your images and videos? Is it all of that fancy thing? But there's no substance in what you're saying. There's no value. What really is it? You have to decide. And for me, it was making sure that I provide value, making sure that my audience can connect with me. The audio is pretty okay, the video is pretty okay, but the main thing for me is my content.
Yeah.
That it makes sense.
Yeah.
That it could add value.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of persons, especially beginners, they try to compensate for their beginner level by buying all this expensive gear instead of actually focusing on the thing they need to improve, which is getting better at speaking, communicating, talking to the people, getting the story across to the audience. Yeah. You've been
Yeah. And you said something important there. People are at a beginner and they're trying to compensate. You cannot compensate for being a beginner. You're a beginner.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that you're a beginner.
Yeah.
When somebody is walking, when a baby is walking, learning to walk. I mean, we might remember when we started to walk, but we cannot say to ourselves, "Oh, this is all my legs could do. This is all my legs could do. I'm supposed to be walking like mom and dad."
Yeah.
Beginner, you're going to stumble, you're going to grit your knee, you're going to fall on your behind. You're going to do that. And that is what we need to go through to be able to walk like an adult.
Yeah.
And decide how we want to walk like an adult. You don't have to walk like mom if you don't go through your own beginner stage and then move to the next stage and move to the next stage and then as you're going along that journey, you decide, I don't like how this feels. Let me change that. You understand? Let me this, let me that. But you're not allowing yourself to go through that. You're a beginner podcast and you want to leap over all of that.
Yeah.
And just jump across to becoming an expert and think you're an expert by fooling yourself with buying equipment until the harsh reality hits you and you're like, nobody's listening to my podcast. Let me just stop. I can't keep up with this.
Yeah.
I'm not getting the engagement because you want the perfect, you want to be like a Les Brown. You want to be like a Tony Robbins. But if you really listen to Les Brown's story, he struggled. All of them. So that was their learning to walk. So appreciate your learning to walk. Accept it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Enjoy it. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned that you used to do a show back to back from 1 to 5 p.m. your time. What made you did talk about I'm curious, that's 1 to 5. How many? That's about 4 hours. How did you distribute it on your podcast platform after the live show?
It's spaced out. So it depends on the bookings. When people book me, it has a time. And my episodes are about 30 minutes. Now I have gone down to 15 minutes. So it used to be 30 minutes, but there were breaks in between. So it was easy to do.
Yeah.
Nothing difficult.
Yeah. You mentioned that your podcast is something that you use for your business, and like it's a really it's a solid pillar in your business. How does podcasting really help the business? How does it fit into the ecosystem?
Well, it's content. It's added value. So I'm having a conversation here with you about podcasting. If we were talking, we're talking communications as well. I could repurpose this because that is what you're supposed to do. Repurpose the content and generate a number of things that could add value to your audience. So you have images, quotes, articles, blogs, audiograms, a whole number of things that you could use that will reach a diverse audience because some people are into images, visuals, some people are into audio, some people are into text. Some people want downloadable things, tips, resources that they could get, and you provide that to them. So it adds to what I talk about in my career, in my profession, in my consultancy. So anybody who is reading those things after I have a podcast or a guest, because I promote my guests as well through it. So it's not just a matter of promoting me. and they will see that I am versed in what I'm talking about, or it highlights my skills and experience. And so anybody reading that will be probably interested in learning more. And if they are, they know how to reach me. There will be a link there to reach me, whether it's my email, or they could book a time for us to talk, or they may want a particular service which they pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't do ads or sponsorships on your podcast.
At all.
Okay. So
I don't do it.
you,
I don't do it.
you said,
I don't think it's at that point. It's not at that point yet. Even though it's 13 years in, it's not at that point yet. If somebody wants to approach me to do it, that's fine. But I don't think it's at that point yet, because if somebody is coming to sponsor, they're looking for particular key performance indicators. I haven't been really, as I said, aggressively pursuing my podcast over the years. It's within recent times I've been doing it. And so a sponsor is going to be looking for a certain return on their investment when they invest money in you. And if you really want to retain a sponsor for a very long time, you have to make sure that you're performing. Again, let me give an example. We could relate to sports. When, for example, like Usain Bolt, I used to live in Jamaica. So Usain Bolt has to maintain a particular standard, in order for him to continue to have Puma behind him, because Puma is not going to spend millions of US dollars thrown away. He has to keep performing.
yeah.
And it's the same thing even in our job. If you want to maintain your job, be able to command the respect that they know that you're an asset to them. If they lose you, they know what they're losing. They can't afford to lose you. And it even relates to relationships. Somebody has to keep adding value, the man, the woman, if they want to be able to stay together. From the time one person is not giving, then there's an imbalance in that scale. So a sponsor is the same way, whether it's a personal relationship, work relationship, sports, it is the same way. People are invested with time, money, effort. Once they invest anything that they consider important to them, they want a return on that investment.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the fact that even though it seems you're not sponsoring the show, you're actually promoting your own product, which even converts better because the people trust you even more than they would trust any sponsor you bring on the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's my resources. Yeah, it's what I give. So it even adds more value to me. So I don't necessarily need sponsors, really. It's not it's not part of my strategy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of somebody else's strategy. But and people do it to elevate. It's really when you have a sponsor, it's to elevate. So they say, oh, you have a backing of this and that. But I'll tell you honestly, when I listen to podcasts and I'm deep into listening to the conversation. Next thing you know, boom, this is sponsored by da 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 da. I'm like, oh my God. I am right in the middle of this thing. Boom, here they come. Because it annoys us even when we're watching TV. You're in the middle of a real juicy show, and just when you see the man about to
Yeah.
there they go.
We're back after this short commercial break.
It's the most annoying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it because you'll be paid to. And that's the other thing, wisdom. To me, it takes away. When you have that kind of sponsor thing, it just loses the value
Yeah.
of the whole podcast.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I don't really want to listen to. I don't want to watch that show anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just get annoyed. And joy and excitement is just gone. And it's like, no matter what they do, no matter what other show they bring, they can't get you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much. So I don't do it. I don't need it.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't need it. I don't want that break. I
yeah.
don't want that break in my audience attention. They already have a short attention span. And for me to come in with, oh, this is brought to
You
you
by this was wow. The sweet thing about podcasting is that there are many paths one could take. And I think the key thing is finding the path that works best for you. And not necessarily because someone is doing sponsor, I have to do sponsor, or someone is doing product, I have to do product. No. There are so many factors that come into play when it comes to monetization and making money from a podcast. Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah.
You did mention that you're promoting your podcast like more than you used to, right? During this past couple of weeks. I'd love for you to give us a kind of like a behind the curtain look of some of the things you're doing for your podcast.
My show is called, like I mentioned, Between the Lines, right? So that has been like that from 2012. I never change it. Don't even ask me how I came up with the name. It just spiritually came to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Lord, I love that." Yeah, Between the Lines. I'm just inspired to do these things. So when I'm inspired, I act on when the Holy Spirit tells me to do things, and it just works, right?
Yeah.
So in recent times, because I'm aligning my podcast to my business and my consultancy, I decided to invest in Beyond the Lines. So Between the Lines is now supported by Beyond the Lines.
I'm confused. Who's Beyond the Lines?
No. Beyond the Lines is me.
Oh, okay.
So when you come to my show, the podcast, which is Between the Lines, it is supported because you just said you want to know behind the curtain.
Yeah.
You want to have the behind the curtain. No, so I'm giving you a behind the curtain. So my podcast is Between the Lines. And people might say, when you hear Between the Lines, it's normally a phrase or idiom used in English, right? When somebody say read between the lines,
yeah.
It means there's a hidden meaning, which is what my show is.
Yeah.
Decoding hidden meanings in communication, right? So people will come to find out, or I will talk about topics where you're trying to decipher what's going on, or for you to figure out, what is this man telling me? So for example, if a man says, I need more space, you know as a man, when you say I need more space to a woman, what you are saying. But a woman would be like, what the hell? What do you mean you need more space? So, and then you will have work between the lines situations. So in addition, how I support my podcast, I have now set up with my blogs, my articles, my ebook courses and things like that on Beyond the Lines, which means that when you come to Between the Lines, my podcast, and you hear the conversation and you walk away with more knowledge, more experience, more tips, you can now take it over and take it a step up another level and go beyond the lines. So while you were between the lines, now you're beyond the lines.
Yeah. I like that.
So you're no longer between.
I like that.
You're no longer between.
I like that. You've owned, like, it's nice when you're able to come up with a naming concept that you just say between the lines, beyond the lines, and then you could add maybe before the lines. Like, it just keeps going, the series of stuff. Wow.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow.
So you were between the lines. You didn't know. Your awareness was low. Your self-esteem was low. You just didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah.
You know. But now that you come to my podcast and you want to go another level.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to stay here.
No.
You have to go beyond that. So you go beyond the lines. So Beyond the Lines offers articles, ebook courses. There is a new segment that I'm tweaking it up.
Yeah.
Decode this. Code this. DECODE. Decode this.
Yeah.
Meaning I am able to explain to people if they come to me with a situation. You know, girls talk. A girl might say, what is he saying? What do they mean? Or they might say, I have a situation at work, a toxic environment, and the person is doing this. What are they doing? What are they planning? So that you can go into that meeting more prepared. So I have Decode this.
Oh.
Because my podcast, Between the Lines, is about decoding hidden meanings. Yeah. So I am offering a service in addition to my Beyond the Lines platform to people who want to understand what's really going on in their personal relationships as well as their professional relationship so that they're not walking into a trap. They're not giving more of themselves anymore when they shouldn't, in their personal relationship. So this is the behind the curtains.
Yeah.
I'm giving you
Yeah.
I'm giving you the backstage.
Yeah. I got to see some secrets that are highly confidential.
Don't tell.
If you're listening to this podcast, please keep it to yourself. Yeah. Wow. That's really nice. It's nice when everything we are doing is working together to support each other instead of just, yeah, it's really tiring when this one is on his own, this one is on his own, and now you put in effort here. But when the podcast is doing well, it feeds into the business is doing well, it feeds into the podcast, and everything is just growing and growing, and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. The question, if I were in your shoes right now as a host, the question you should be asking me is, after 13 years, it took 13 years to get to this point. And why weren't these ideas that I'm sharing with you now, that I'm implementing or have implemented and still adding my little, love sprinkles on it? Why didn't it occur to me in 2012? Can't answer that. I can't answer that. Because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
What we need to know was told to us at the time that we needed to know that. So back in 2012, what I needed to know, I knew then. What I know now, I didn't need to know that back then.
Yeah.
Because probably I wasn't ready for it. Soul wasn't matched to that yet. I wasn't at that place. So, and why am I sharing this with you, wisdom? I'm saying this for a significant reason. The reason why I'm sharing it is to let people know who want to get into podcasting or anything, business, anything at all. It doesn't matter what it is. That don't beat up on yourself. I shoulda, I coulda, I would. Stop it. It makes no sense. Because what you have now, the information that you're working with now is what you need to work with now. 10, 20 years down the road, or like in my case, 13 years, I had to go through, which is why I tell you, as a baby, you have to stumble, walk, take it. I had to go through things. No, I don't know why. And I call on the Holy Spirit. I don't know why the Lord decided, no, he needed to plant this in me. Why no? And he did, but it never occurred to me to even ask him why. I'm just talking it out with you for the first time. It never occurred to me to say, so Lord, why you didn't tell me this 13 years ago? It never occurred to me, Skim, because it doesn't matter to me. The point about it, he gave it to me now.
Yeah.
I know what I know now for a reason. Next year, 2026, next 13 years, I don't know what he will give me. But here's what. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for it. I don't know, but I'm excited for it. So I am saying this to share with anybody. It doesn't matter. Don't compare yourself. And you know the reason why he probably do it this way with me? Because I can't speak for anybody else. I don't compare myself to anybody, wisdom. Nobody could compare to me. And I'm not saying that to sound aloof or better than anybody else. Nobody could compare to me. And I can't compare to anybody else. What I have and what I'm given is mine. Nobody could take it away no matter what they do. They could try, but it cannot be taken away. And I don't want what somebody have. That doesn't interest me. And I don't have that curiosity or need to try to be somebody else, to look like somebody else, to sound like somebody else, to be like some. No, I just want to be me. And so I was given what I had to be given in 2012 and continuing along 13 years for that reason. So that is why, with humility, because I'm a very humble person, he gave me this now. He probably felt, well, Corine is at a point in her life. I've worked on her. I've seen her grow. She needs to do this now. Or because he's God, he knows everything. He knows something is coming and Corine needs to be prepared for this. She needs to put this out now because the world is going to need the information that I'm pointing her to. So I need her to do this now. It wasn't needed back in 2012, but it's needed now. So I need her to do this. So I go, and you would hear me mentioning God and the Holy Spirit a lot because I don't do anything on my own, wisdom. Nothing I do is on my own. Nothing. Everything is God inspired. Everything. If he tells me wait, I sit back. I don't argue. I sit back. If I do challenge and argue, I tell you it's not a pretty situation. But once I'm obedient and he gives it to me, listen to me, it's on fire. Just as how you realize at first when I told you between the lines and beyond the lines, you're like, who is beyond the lines? And then when I explained it, your eyes open wide.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my, I could see that. You know, it makes sense. So the lesson behind all what I'm saying is don't beat up on yourself. Focus on yourself. Give yourself grace. Don't compare yourself to anybody else because podcasting is not, look, podcasting now is an industry wisdom. When I look at podcasting now, the thing frightens me to hell. I'm telling you, it's frightening. And you might think, yeah, you might think, but wait a minute, wasn't it just yesterday I was in podcast?
Yeah.
When did all of this happen? You know, thing has data. There's a whole podcast and listen, reports. d- uh, Listen, they are taking podcasting. It's not a joke. But am I going to just quiver in a corner and make them, whoever they are, decide Corine must keep her mouth shut or
No.
stay quiet? Or say to myself, well, there's so many people talking about communication and nobody would listen to me. And let me just stop. No, no, no. That's when you need to put more gas in your can, press X, and just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. The story. It's inspiring because the I think there's this metaphor that usually when we're on a journey, it's like when a car is driving in the night, the headlight is on, but you don't get to see the whole journey, but you get to see far enough to make it to your destination.
Just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though you want to see all the way
Yeah.
ahead, you're not supposed
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. And that's
You're
the
just supposed to see that and make that enough and be thankful.
yeah
And when you get to that point, you will see
enough.
see enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
You-
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Like chatting with you for the past 45 to 50 minutes has really been a delight.
It's
Yeah, our time flies when you're having an
you
interesting conversation. Yeah, I think that for me is one of the personal benefits of podcasting is you get to meet some amazing person and you get to like bounce I share ideas with them. Like that for me, it's wow. Like sometimes when I see people not get into podcasting, I'm like, you're missing out.
That's okay. No, and you shouldn't tell them they're missing out, you know. That I wouldn't recommend you say that because people call it FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
It's something that people that something used to make people feel bad. And I don't like that. If somebody is not into podcasting, leave it alone. You know, it comes just like when somebody say, Corrine, come to this party. If you're not, you're missing out and they try to make you feel bad if you don't go to the party. What the hell? You know, no. Or if you don't eat this, you're missing out. Like I don't eat meat, right? And when people say, what do you eat then? What do you eat? I can't take you out. There is nothing that you could eat. I'm like, what do you mean? I eat a lot of other things. I'm not missing meat. They will tell me, you're missing half of your life gone. I'm like, where? Where?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, where? I'm healthier than you. And you watch the people who are telling me that, and they're like 300 and something pounds. And they're telling me I am missing out.
Yeah.
Half of my life is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is not to make anybody who is, you know, a bit overweight or a bit bigger than me feel bad. I'm just saying you have to be careful what you're saying.
Yeah.
So don't say to anybody, oh, you're missing out. They're not missing out anything.
Yeah.
They're doing what they're supposed to do. And if at any point they want to start a podcast, they can, but they're not missing out anything.
Yeah. I guess my advice would probably go to those people who they really want to do a podcast, but for some reason, all their life, everything they wanted to do, they always waited for the validation or the permission of other people. And so when they wanted to start a podcast, because you know the thing about podcast is that it's your own show. You have the full creative control. You can do whatever you want on your show. You can say, I want to do 5 minutes, I want to do 2 hours. It's your show, right? Nobody gives them permission, nobody gives them validation. And they want to do this thing, but then they're like, I need somebody, I need my boss, I need my mom, I need my dad to tell me, do the podcast, but nobody tells them to do anything. They're like,
Yeah, there are people like that, and that's okay. There are people who need to have somebody every step of the way before they could do anything. They don't do anything on their own. And those are the voices, the limiting beliefs that hold them back. And you would hear that a lot of great ideas are in the grave. A lot of people are in the cemetery that died with ideas. And when they're on their deathbed, they're surrounded by all these people that represent the voices of the things that they never did. There are things I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do bungee jumping, and I'm certainly not jumping out of a pool. So,
Ah,
even though I fantasize about it, I'm
wow.
not doing it.
I thought I was the only one. Wow, finally I saw someone who has the same ideas. But I'm like, why would I just leave where I am and decide to say, wow. I'm like, no, 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 no. No.
Friends who have done it. And listen, I have black friends. Let me tell you straight up. I have black friends who have done it. They were scared crazy. They jumped out and they come back on the plane and they jump again. And I noticed that they're still alive. And so there is proof that they're alive. But hello, that is
That is
just
not
not
me.
me. And it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody wants companionship or whatever you want to call it to do everything, go ahead. Just remember, when that person or thing is no longer there,
Yeah.
you are not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
If it
important.
is missing, you are not doing it. So you just have to decide, are you the type of is it working for you? How is that working out for you? If you have to rely on an external factor to do everything that you're doing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so
But
much.
I could give you a nice little joke. I am sure that when they were kissing that little boy, they didn't have anybody permission, or they didn't have company when they were kissing that little boy, behind the school
Yeah.
under the bleachers. They didn't have company then.
Yeah.
So, so if
Yeah.
they didn't have company then, I think you could do something on your own back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just have to throw that little reality
Yeah.
in there a bit of
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I just had to throw that little bit of wisdom in
Pun
wisdom.
intended. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. So much. I think the final question I'll ask before we would round up this episode is, I know you talk specifically, you kept talking about a lot to people who are just starting out, that they should not compare themselves to others, that they should look for and really look inward and ask themselves, is this really what I want to do? Why is this something I love to do? Is something that I should be doing? And if it's not what you want to do, no problem, no big deal. You don't have to do it. And that for me, is really a wake up call for a lot of persons, because you see a lot of persons start a podcast like, oh, I should start a podcast. No, you shouldn't start anything. You don't have to do anything. Like, if you want to do it, fine. If not, no problem. The other things you could be doing. What is one advice you give to someone? Because you've been doing this for 13 years. I know that there are days where, there are days where the circumstances did not seem to encourage, you showing up consistently and podcasting. But, 13 years, that's not, I mean, if there was a child that was born 13 years ago, that's a teenager. And with the way kids grow these days, they probably be tall and really, really tall. Yeah. So what advice would you have for someone who they really want to start a podcast, and for the environment, the circumstance, everything seems to work against them for the podcast, but they want to persevere, they want to push through. What would you tell them?
Go back to your why. Why are you doing it? Everything goes back to your why. Why did you start the podcast in the first place? And for me, it was, like I said in the beginning of our conversation, it was to expand my mind. It was something that I could do to keep me active. The mind is a horrible thing to waste. And I am an intellectually stimulating person, so I needed to have that. And it's a great way, like you mentioned, to meet people from all over the world by just sitting in your own living bedroom or kitchen or wherever it is. I didn't have to go anywhere. And it was very cost effective. It didn't really cost me anything, you know? So you have to go back to your why. And for me, I wanted to learn, I wanted to expand, and I wanted to figure out other ways I could be doing things, as opposed to limiting myself to the way we are acculturized to do things. You would have, the African sort of upbringing, and I would have my Caribbean upbringing, and people could be very, um, hold on, they could hold on to the way they think as opposed to realizing there are other ways of doing things. If I come to Africa and I watch how you all cook things, we might have similar ways, similar foods, but I might see a mother throwing something in there and I'll be like, Ma, why you put that in there? And it might taste great. And I'll be like, and she'll be like, wait, you didn't know you could put. I'm like, whoa, this is not something that we do in the Caribbean. And I'm definitely going back to throw in that little thing in there because I could see the difference that it makes. But if I stayed with my own way of doing things, I will never know cake could come out different. I could never know that this food could taste so much better or it could be lighter. So if we stay within our own space thinking this is it, we are actually further limiting ourselves. And human beings, wisdom, they are not meant to stay like this. We are supposed to expand. We haven't touched who we really are yet, it's just surface level. Surface level. The time that we have here on this earth, which we don't know how long, we are supposed to find every opportunity to challenge ourselves.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not jumping out of plane and I am not bungee jumping, so I'm not going to expand there. But other things, other things, I could expand. Okay, my mind, my way of thinking. Okay,
Yeah.
but the rest of my body is not going to expand with bungee jumping and anything to do with jumping out of a plane or bungee jump.
Yeah.
So anybody who is doing a podcast and thinking, probably they should quit, how to persevere, go back to your why. Why are you doing it? And if your why is no longer pushing you, then your why wasn't strong enough in the first place. It wasn't strong enough.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you need to do the things that scare you. You need to do the things that scare the shit out of you. I'm serious.
Yeah.
You need to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll pick you up, wisdom, and we'll go to that airport, and we're gonna jump out.
No. I'll be there. I'll give you moral support. I'll support you. But no, I'll support you. I'll be there. I'll encourage you. But nah. I'll watch.
I'll be in the plane.
Oh, everything is breaking now that I'm talking. It's all right. Wow. Thank you so much for that advice. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for sharing and not withhold. I feel like the other thing is that I probably the next time I should get a coffee or something like that so that, while we're chatting, it's complete.
I'm going to complain. I'm going to complain because I know that's not the African way. African people are very hospitable people and they always offer you food. I don't understand it. First, you're not wearing anything African. Then you didn't even offer me anything to eat or drink.
It's all right. Forgive me for not representing. Yeah. I apologize on behalf of me, my African people. That's true. Your podcast birthday anniversary is coming up. Hope you'll be sending my cake too.
You did not just say that. You did not wear anything African.
Oh,
Anything to eat.
be the better person. Be the bigger person.
No, I don't want. No, I don't want. No.
Okay. Before I forget, where can listeners learn more about you and connect with you?
You just Google my name as you're seeing it here on the screen.
Okay.
And you'll find me. LinkedIn. Once you get me on LinkedIn, you're safe.
Can you say your name just so for those that may be listening on audio on the podcast audio platform?
Sure. Corine La Font. It's French. Africa has some French nations, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Don't worry.
so
When I come across the Africa wisdom, I'm grabbing it.
okay. Thank God you told me about that secret plan of yours, so I'll know how to escape. Yeah. Please, if you're listening, message her on LinkedIn and just tell her that you saw her on my podcast story and you can connect with her. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and it was a pleasure chatting with you. I do hope to probably have you back on the podcast, and stay in touch
until we jump out that plane.
Okay.
We could practice. They have a simulation, no? Whereas indoors, I don't know where it is, but I've seen and heard of it where you could do simulation. So we could practice what it feels like jumping out of a plane. We could do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, jumping is jumping.
Work our way, work our way up, just like the headlights on the night's street. We could just reach there, yeah, and see what it feels like.
I mean, I'm not particularly interested in that destination. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what you want, I would support you. I would encourage you, and good luck. Godspeed. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel like we could keep going for hours, but yeah. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. And thank God for Podmatch. Thank God for the podcast. I got to connect with you and I got to speak with you.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye bye. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.